Poland slams F-16 delays as NATO tensions rise. It is December 26, 2025, and believe me, on NATO's eastern flank, the mood is anything but festive. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Ari in the latest podcast by Defense Report for sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're covering a story that really gets to the heart of the challenges facing the alliance. A critical defense program for one of NATO's most vital frontline members is sinking into, well, industrial quicksand.
And it's creating an alarming capability gap, one that could last for years.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is a sharp breakdown of what's happening in Poland. We're analyzing their unprecedented defense buildup, why industrial bottlenecks are causing massive friction with key allies, and what risk this creates for the entire region.
It's so important to frame the stakes here. Since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Poland has become the absolute epicenter of NATO defense. They're spending an astonishing 4.7% of their GDP on defense. That's the highest in the entire alliance.
Wow.
And the success or failure of their air modernization, it basically determines the regional deterrence posture, and of course, how secure the immediate flank of our ally, Ukraine, really is.
And that's the crux of the problem, isn't it? Warsaw is pouring billions into this, replacing its old Soviet fleets, which they absolutely have to do, but they're hitting these huge systemic delays at the same time.
Right. It's a double whammy.
Exactly. We're talking about, first, the upgrade for their F-16 workhorse fleet is now stretching into the late 2030s.
So late 2030s.
And their immediate stopgap, the South Korean F-A-50s, are being functionally crippled by U.S. export bureaucracy. So the question for you, and for us, is why? Why are the systems Europe needs on the flight line now being held up?
And what kind of vulnerability does this create? This is really testing the transatlantic partnership in a vital region.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the plan itself. Poland's aiming for a 160 aircraft air force, 10 squadrons, getting rid of those old Su-22s and MiG-29s. So what does this new high-low mix actually look like?
It's a very modern, very layered strategy. At the very top, you've got the stealth component. That's the 32 F-35A Lightning II fighters.
The fifth-gen stuff.
Precisely. The first one actually flew in late 2024, and the first delivery to Poland is expected around January 2026. But these are for, deep stealth penetration missions. They're the Scalpel.
Okay, so you've got the Scalpel. Then you need the reliable multi-role jet that can handle, day-to-day air policing.
That's the backbone. Their existing 48 F-16s, the Block 52 plus aircraft, these were delivered way back between 2006 and 2008, so they're the workhorses doing the bulk of domestic air patrol and supporting NATO.
And then there's the third piece, the affordable mass. This is critical, right? So you're not burning out your expensive F-35s on routine patrols.
Exactly. That's where the 48 KAI FA-50s from South Korea come in. Their appeal is pure economics.
Cheaper to fly.
Way cheaper. We're talking estimates around maybe $4,000 per hour compared to $8,000 or more for an F-16. So you can send an FA-50 up against a Russian incursion into your air defense zone and save the high-end jets for when it really counts. It's a strategically sound plan.
But, as you said, the sound strategy is just crashing into a wall of industrial reality. Starting with that F-16 backbone, the jets are approaching midlife. They have to be modernized to the F-16B Viper standard to stay relevant. So what's so critical about this $3.8 billion upgrade?
It's the difference between flying a great jet from 2008 and a truly modern fourth-gen fighter that can survive today. The single biggest jump is the radar, the AN/APG-83 Sabre ASA radar.
Okay, wait, let's pause on the jargon. ASA. Why should you, our listener, care about a new radar model number? What does that let an F-16 do that it couldn't do before against the Russian threat?
That's a great question. Because without getting bogged down in specs, this new radar changes the entire game. It's an active, electronically scanned array. That means better range, hugely improved jamming resistance, and most critically for Poland, it lets the jet track and engage multiple targets at the same time.
So defending against, say, a wave of cruise missiles or drones.
Exactly. The old radar just can't keep up. The upgrade also adds next-gen electronic warfare systems like Viper Shield, which L3 Harris is building right now, and the ability to fire advanced missiles like the AIM-120D AMRAAM. These are non-negotiable for air parity.
So the tech is there. The contract was signed in August 2025. But here's the unbelievable part, the timeline. The return of these upgraded jets stretches from 2030 all the way to 2038.
A decade-long process.
8 years just to upgrade a fleet they already own. That's a huge vulnerability baked right into their plans.
It is the clearest sign of the systemic crisis in the U.S. defense industrial base, the DIB. I mean, this isn't just a paperwork delay, it's structural fragility. The DIB is struggling to meet the surge in global demand after 2022.
Supply chain bottlenecks, workforce shortages.
A huge workforce shortage. The industry saw an attrition rate of around 14.5% in 2024. That's staggering. It's much higher than other manufacturing sectors.
So when you combine that with the sheer volume of orders, from Poland's F-16s and Apaches to constantly resupplying Ukraine, the system is just overloaded.
Right. And this is why Poland's defense ministry is on record calling the U.S. foreign military sales system, the FMS, overly expensive, slow, and increasingly mistake-prone.
And Poland's trying to mitigate this, right? They're taking on some of the work themselves.
They are, which is smart. The WZL-2 facility near Bydgoszcz is going to handle 46 of the 48 modernizations. And Polish companies like PZL Milek are already building major parts, like rear fuselages, for the global F-16 line.
So they're integrating themselves into the supply chain.
They are, but the core systems, the specialized radars, the software, that all remains controlled by the strained U.S. system.
Okay, that clarifies the decade-long F-16 problem. But if the F-16s are slow-rolled, the F-A-50s were bought from South Korea specifically to fill that gap. What happened to the Korean stopgap?
The F-A-50 hits a different wall, but it's just as frustrating. U.S. export control bureaucracy, specifically ITAR.
International Traffic in Arms Regulations.
Poland got the first 12 training jets, the gap filler configuration, very quickly in 2023. But the fully combat-capable F-A-50PL version, delayed by 18 months, deliveries are now pushed back to 2027 or 2028.
And what does that mean for a country right on the border? And why is a South Korean jet even subject to U.S. rules?
It means they're stuck using their aging, unupgraded F-16s for high-speed intercepts for years longer than planned. And it's because the F-A-50, even though it's built by Korea Aerospace Industries, relies on critical American subsystems.
The missile.
The missile. Without U.S. approval to integrate the AIM-120 ARAM, the F-A-50PL cannot perform beyond visual range missions.
So it's basically toothless for the air-to-air combat role they bought it for.
Exactly. ITAR isn't just a hurdle. It's a mechanism that lets the U.S. government effectively veto the combat effectiveness of an ally's jet, even one they bought somewhere else. And that reliance, that dependence on Washington for ITAR approval, is causing serious apprehension in Warsaw. Their readiness is being held captive.
This whole situation creates a capability vacuum then, which forces them to look for immediate, heavy firepower. Let's pivot to the final step in their plan: finding 32 high-performance air superiority fighters.
And this is where Boeing saw a massive opportunity. They've been pitching the F-15EX Eagle II very aggressively. The pitch is simple: quick, heavy air dominance to plug the gap.
What's the main selling point of the F-15EX? I mean, besides just being a beast of a fighter.
It's defined by its reach and its payload. It's the brawn to the F-35 stealth. The F-15EX has a combat radius over 1,000 kilometers, so it can project power deep. But the number that really stands out is the payload.
Up to 30,000 pounds.
30,000. That means it can carry a dozen AMRAAM missiles. A dozen. And it can handle future hypersonic weapons. It's the perfect complement to the F-35. The F-35 clears the way. The F-15EX brings the arsenal.
And Boeing sweetened the deal with the whole loyal wingman concept, right?
Absolutely. They're pairing the F-15EX with the MQ-28 Ghostbat drone, manned-unmanned teaming. The drone acts as a sensor, a decoy, or even a weapon, which dramatically increases the F-15 crew's survivability.
Of course, they could also go with the Eurofighter Typhoon for better European interoperability, or just buy more F-35s.
They could, but our sources indicate Poland is prioritizing quick delivery over what they call industrial policy purity. They need jets in the air now, which keeps the F-15EX very much in the running.
Okay, let's zoom out. The strategic fallout. What is this massive pileup of delayed F-16s, F-35s, the F-A-50? What does it all mean for the transatlantic alliance, especially right now?
It's creating a crisis of confidence in the partnership. These delays, combined with the U.S. using controls like ITAR to restrict an ally's capabilities, well, it's making reliance on the U.S. supply chain look politically and operationally risky for these frontline states.
It sounds like it's pushing European nations towards more self-reliance, especially in the Baltic Sea region, where the threat is right there.
That is the core takeaway. This frustration is fueling what we're calling regional pragmatism. The urgent need to modernize is pushing northeastern Europe to bypass those slow, top-down systems like FMS or even the fragmented EU mechanisms.
Poland buying Korean jets is a perfect example.
Exactly. The Nordics buying German or domestic systems is another. They're all trying to rebuild their own domestic capacity and find reliable, faster suppliers.
And this approach is translating directly into cooperation with Ukraine.
It absolutely is. The Baltic Sea region is leading industrial integration with Ukraine, especially in fields like drones and EW. Denmark, for instance, has a direct financing model that sends money straight to Ukrainian producers. The EU's new Safe Loan facility even encourages Ukrainian firms to participate in European defense projects. It's a bottom-up urgency that's trying to get around the slowness of the big systems.
So Poland's huge investment, that 4.7% of GDP, it's fundamentally a statement. What's the statement they're making?
That they are determined to be a regional security provider, not just a consumer. They're still deeply committed to the U.S. relationship. You can see that in the FMS loans, the patchy deal, hosting the Powys APS-2 site. But their urgent spending and their diversification show a deep anxiety that the U.S. DIB just cannot meet the moment.
So we come back to that central tension. Poland is racing to transform its air force to meet this urgent threat, but the industrial foundation of the West is struggling to keep pace. And that's creating a capability gap.
The commitment to interoperability is still there, though. You look at the joint training at the Powys site, the PPLS program where Polish military maintain U.S. equipment. The technical commitment is deep. But ultimately, the Baltic Sea region is acting as a laboratory for the future of the transatlantic defense industrial order.
A laboratory.
They're trying to forge a new balance where Europe generates more of its own capability, especially through regional efforts and integration with Ukraine, to reduce its vulnerability without breaking that essential transatlantic bond.
Which leaves us with the critical question. Will the pragmatic, bottom-up industrial cooperation we're seeing in the Baltic Sea region, driven by this shared urgency, succeed in closing the capability gap faster than the top-down, fragmented approaches of the EU and the strained U.S. supply chain? That's the race against the clock that Poland and all of NATO faces right now.
A fascinating and critical question for the decade ahead.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.